A massive 19.1% of American adults are currently trapped in a psychological loop that quietly siphons thousands of dollars from their bank accounts every single year without them ever realizing it. It is not because they are bad at math, and it has nothing to do with their actual income level. Instead, a hidden mental tax is being levied on their futures, driven entirely by a modern epidemic of existential dread. We are literally paying a premium just to cope with the fear of tomorrow. But the mechanism behind this financial drain is completely invisible until you know where to look. By the end of this video, you will understand the exact neurological trick that makes you buy things you do not need when the world feels like it is ending, and how to stop it. We will expose how global pessimism acts as a silent partner in your bank account, forcing you into a cycle of doom, spending that feels comforting but leaves you broke. And the final piece of this puzzle is the single weirdest reason most people never escape this trap, rooted in a bizarre study about people who save money despite having absolutely $0 in their account. But to understand how we got here, we have to look at a strange psychological experiment involving a flight simulator and a fear of crashing. Researchers studying phobias like the fear of flying often use virtual reality simulators to help patients unlearn their terror through exposure therapy. But clinical psychologists recently noticed something strange. Patients who suffered from deep existential dread found these standard therapies almost completely useless. The fear of the plane crashing was not actually about the plane. It was a physical manifestation of a deeper, underlying dread about the pointlessness of existence. When we feel powerless against massive global threats, our brains desperately search for any tiny sliver of control we can grasp in our immediate environment. But instead of facing that vast, heavy dread, we find a much easier, much faster way to feel temporary power, and it starts with a single click. This brings us to the phenomenon of doom spending, a defense mechanism where we trade our long-term financial security for a fleeting hit of dopamine today. When news headlines scream about climate disasters, economic collapse, and soaring housing costs, our subconscious brain makes a dark calculation. If the future is doomed, why bother saving for it? This is where the psychology of money habits turns destructive, shifting our focus entirely to instant gratification because the long-term reward feels like a fantasy. We buy premium coffee, designer clothes, or expensive electronics, not because we are reckless, but because we are mourning the future we feel we were promised. But here's where it gets weird. This behavior is actually a calculated trick our brains play to keep us from looking at the real problem. Now, here is the part nobody talks about, and it completely flips everything we think we know about wealth on its head. A fascinating psychological study split people into 3 distinct groups to see who actually saves money. Group 1 had money and knew it. Obviously, they saved. Group 3 had no money and knew it, so they could not save. But it was Group 2 that shocked researchers. These were people who actually had no money, but because of a psychological illusion, they did not realize they were poor. Against all economic logic, this second group saved money at nearly the exact same rate as the wealthy group. This proves that saving money has almost nothing to do with your actual paycheck and everything to do with your level of confidence. When you possess confidence in the future, saving money feels like an exciting investment in a real, tangible destination. But when cynicism takes over, your financial confidence plummets, and your brain categorizes savings not as an asset, but as a useless sacrifice. Existential dread actively strips away that confidence, leaving you in a state of chronic financial anxiety. Behavioral economist Dan Geller, author of Money Anxiety, has shown how this systemic dread alters our daily habits, making us hypersensitive to risk while simultaneously driving us toward impulsive spending. We are trapped in a self-fulfilling prophecy. We spend because we feel hopeless, and the resulting empty bank account makes us feel even more hopeless. This constant state of low-grade anxiety creates a massive cognitive blind spot that financial institutions exploit to quietly drain your accounts. When you're constantly worrying about global crises, you simply do not have the mental energy to scan your bank statements for sneaky hidden fees. Subscription services you forgot about, maintenance charges, and microtransactions slip past your radar, because your brain is too busy processing existential dread. It is a literal cynicism tax. Your mental fatigue makes you financially passive, allowing small, recurring charges to bleed your accounts dry over time. You think you're losing money to a bad economy, but a huge portion is actually escaping through the cracks of your own exhausted attention span. Cognitive scientists have a name for this psychological flaw. They call it present bias. This is our hardwired tendency to prioritize immediate, smaller rewards over much larger, long-term gains in the future. Hal Hirschfield, a marketing professor at UCLA, conducted a groundbreaking study on this bias and made a startling discovery about how our brains perceive time. He found that when we think about our future selves, our brain activity looks exactly the same as when we think about a complete stranger. If you do not feel connected to the person you will be in 20 years, saving money for them feels like giving away your hard-earned cash to a random person on the street. But Hirschfield took the experiment a step further and discovered a brilliant way to bypass this biological glitch. He showed participants digitally aged, highly realistic photos of themselves in the future, forcing them to confront their older self face-to-face. The results were immediate and dramatic. Those who could vividly see their older selves instantly became far better at saving money. When the future self becomes a real person instead of an abstract stranger, our brain suddenly wants to protect them. Without this vivid connection, existential dread steps in and paints the future as a dark, blurry void, making present bias the default setting for your wallet until a simple physical pause changes everything. But this next study from Georgetown University completely broke my brain because it reveals how incredibly easy it is to interrupt this entire cycle with one stupidly simple habit. Researchers studying financial acceptance discovered that impulsive, anxiety-driven spending could be halted by practicing deliberate decision-making. They found that if you simply pause for a few seconds before responding to a temptation, like deciding whether to buy an expensive dessert or click checkout on an online shopping cart, your brain chemistry shifts. That tiny 5-second pause pulls you out of your emotional, dread-induced state and reactivates the logical prefrontal cortex. It sounds almost too simple to be true, but this micro-habit of pausing is the ultimate shield against the modern marketing machine that preys on your existential panic. To make this pause permanent, we have to eliminate willpower from the equation entirely by automating our positive financial habits. When we rely on willpower to save money, we are forcing our exhausted, anxious brains to make a difficult choice every single month. By setting up automatic transfers to your savings and retirement accounts the moment your paycheck hits, you bypass your present bias altogether. The money is saved before your brain even has a chance to think about the state of the world or feel the urge to doom spend. You are effectively outsmarting your own cynicism by making the right financial choice the default path of least resistance. Breaking the cynicism tax requires us to actively reject the narrative of helplessness that global pessimism sells us. Every time you save, even if it is just $5, you are making a quiet, rebellious statement that you believe in your own future. You are proving to your subconscious mind that you have agency, power, and a destination worth planning for. The economy might be unpredictable, and the world will always have crises, but your financial habits are one of the few things you can actually control. It is time to stop letting existential dread act as a silent partner that quietly drains your bank account and robs you of your peace of mind. The secret of the people who saved money despite having almost nothing was simple. They had the confidence to believe their actions mattered. Once you realize that existential dread is just a psychological trick designed to make you trade your future for temporary comfort, the spell is broken. You can start today by checking your bank statements for those hidden fees, setting up one small automated savings transfer, and practicing the 5-second pause. If you want to master the psychology of money habits and protect your hard-earned cash from the hidden traps of modern life, subscribe for more deep dives into the mind.